Sometimes the daytime messes with me, though. Makes me a little like.
Good morning. Welcome to Watershed. We're glad that you're here, whether you're here in the building or outside. It looks like it might be a beautiful day today. Or if you're joining us online, we want to welcome you on Facebook or YouTube. If you are online, we'd love for you to kind of start to say hi and maybe where you are logging in from. Welcome the people around you. But if you're inside or maybe if you're sitting out watching on the TVs, I want to welcome you and invite you to stand as we begin this morning by singing together. When the levee breaks, when my world starts feeling like an earthquake, when your love starts sinking in, I can see on the waves your open arms, your open arms. I will let love find me, and I will let love surprise me. I will let love redesign me. I will let love, I will let love. Never stop chasing, my heart won't stop ever proclaiming your love for us. There's no containing your love won't stop. Your love won't stop. No, you won't stop. Never stop chasing, my heart won't stop ever proclaiming your love for us. There's no containing your love won't stop. Your love won't stop. No, you won't stop. Never stop chasing, my heart won't stop ever proclaiming your love for us. There's no containing your love won't stop. 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 Your love. I will let love find me. And I will let love surprise me. I will let love redesign me. And I will let love, I will let love, I will let love find me. I will let love surprise me. I will let love redesign me. I will let love, I will let love, I will let love, I will let love, oh, I will let love, I will let love.
All I've been through, all I've seen you do, for this I will praise you. My eyes were opened, my chains were broken, and for this I will praise you. How great thou art, how great thou art, oh Lord my God. How great thou art, how great thou art, oh Lord my will praise you. You're never distant. Your heart will never leave. And for this, I will praise you. Oh, how great thou art. How great thou art. Oh, Lord, my God, yes. How great thou art. How great thou art. Oh, Lord, my God. My soul will sing, my heart will sing. How great you are, how big you are. How great thou art, how great thou art. Oh, Lord, my God, how great thou art, how great thou art. Oh, Lord, my
Hi there, Watershed. My name is Sarah Curry, and I've been attending Watershed for 5 years. This fall, I'm hosting a book club on Thursday nights from 7:30 to 9 p.m. virtually. It'll start October 7th, running through November 4th. The book of choice will be No Bad Parts by Richard Schwartz. It'll give us the opportunity to explore internal family systems, help us identify our parts. Second, hopefully liberate some parts. Third, be better self-led individuals. Fourth, show up in the world in a more meaningful way. Again, hope you can join me in October. Sign up in the comment section. Look forward to meeting you and see you soon.
Well, good morning, Watershed. My name is Matt.
And my name is Blair, the only important one you need to remember.
All right, that's how this is going to roll.
I'm kind of kidding. Kind of. Just a little bit.
You have a mischievous streak about you anyway this morning.
Me?
Yeah, I know.
Did I forget my halo?
No, you did not. You did not. We are here this morning just to bring you up to speed on some things that we think might be helpful to know. One, you just were made aware of. Sarah Curry is leading a book discussion as one of our book club facilitators called No Bad Parts. You can sign up for that in the Watershed app. As a matter of fact, we have a lot of opportunities for you to get connected and either be involved in what we feel like are really transformative conversations, whether that's through some of our reclamation, liberation, or preface venues, or book clubs or blocks. In the lobby, there's actually one of those QR code. QR code.
What would you do without me?
Oh my God. This is the last time we do this. See, we're together this week. She goes, we should do announcements together. And I've watched her and David do this thing that they do, and I've been intimidated. So thanks for
Stop.
Stop. All right. So what also, if you're brand new and you're wondering, all right, what does it mean to kind of find some traction here, or that was the biggest mosquito that I've ever. Did you guys see that? It was like a velociraptor just flew by me.
More plagues?
What's that?
So are there more plagues? That was a joke.
Well,
that was
yeah.
a pandemic joke.
That was a good joke.
Where's my drums? Gosh.
Nothing, Jay. Not a thing. This is going nowhere fast. What was I talking about? Preface. Oh, yeah, preface. So if you're interested in kind of finding some traction here and understanding how your theological, spiritual, church experience might start to integrate with who we are as a community of faith, as a church, Preface is a great opportunity. It's 3 weeks long. There's spots open for the next one that starts this Wednesday night at 7. You can sign up in the app. and now I will let you do your thing, and I'm just going to stand over here.
Sweet. Don't go too far.
I won't.
So, I wanted to talk with you this morning. We have been doing life pretty much alone or with our own little pod for the last 18 months, most of you. And so I've been thinking a lot about what does it look like for us to regather and reintegrate, especially in our greenhouse hallway with our kids. And there's actually a passage in Scripture that continues to surface for me, and it's in Exodus, and it's between Moses and his father-in-law Jethro. And Jethro is reminding Moses that he can't do it alone, that he has to have people that come alongside of him because the work is too heavy. And so I keep thinking about that with our greenhouse hallway and also in our own lives. Our dream team has been meeting together for greenhouse, and one thing they say is, I wish people understood that serving in greenhouse actually is almost like a block too, because there are these connections you make with other volunteers. You get to do life together. We've actually got fun stuff planned for the next few months. And what we're doing is we are looking for volunteers just for a small chunk of time from here to December. And so I would encourage you and ask you to please dig down deep and think about if you could serve just 3 times in greenhouse before Christmas, once a month, 3 Sundays, and I can promise you it will change your lives for the better. And if it doesn't, then I will take you out for a drink of your choice on me. That's my promise. It's a guarantee. Some of you are going to lie, though, and say you didn't because you want me to take you out for a drink. I know you people. So, just kidding. But there's a calendar that's actually out whenever you walk out this door, and every one of those green squares should have 2 names on it. And if it doesn't have 2 names, it means that it needs 2 names. And so if you are interested in any way, shape, or form, you can always contact me this week, or you can write your name on one of those squares for the weekend that maybe you'd be interested in jumping in, and I will make contact with you, and we'll talk through what that looks like. We had a training this past week, and I'm open to doing another one because I want you to feel empowered and prepared and excited to spend time with our kids. But they are some of the best humans. I may be a little biased, but they really are in this city, and I'd probably say even in this world. So you would be lucky if you get to spend time with them. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. So thank you, parents, for sharing your kids with us. The other thing is, as we talk about serving kids in our community, maybe Sunday mornings aren't an option for you, and that's okay. Because there's another opportunity during the week through an organization we partner with called Heart Math. And so Heart Math is actually in the process of gathering all of their volunteers, and then they'll start to make assignments for them to certain schools at the end of this month. So if you are even remotely interested, there is a training question time that's virtual on Tuesday morning at 9 a.m., and you can actually reach out to David to get that information. David's the one that's coordinating that partnership. But they would love to have you there as well. So depends, whatever your schedule allows during the week or on a Sunday. And if this is a lot of information, you can find it on the app, or you can find it out on the table as you walk out.
Yeah, it's been something that's been going on for, I think, over 10 years. We've been partnering either with Heart Math Tutoring or other elementary schools to say, look, some of our best resources are our lives. And so to be able to show up, I know for me personally, the first, 8 or 10 years of my experience here, there was somebody that I was involved with, a child, probably 200 or 300 kids have been impacted by the literal kind of hands-on experience of folks getting involved. And you don't have to be a rocket science to tutor these kids. It's usually pretty low-hanging fruit there. Is that fair to say?
Can you multiply? You're good.
If you can multiply and add, you should be fine. And that's kind of a segue to say, the things that happen here, the transformation, the reclamation, the liberation, the interconnectivity that we are attempting to create through our blocks or through our weekend experiences, these are transformative experiences. These are ways that we would argue that God begins to do some interesting work in our lives, but then also through our lives. And so I wanted to make that connection, because as you're making decisions about things like your time, your energy, and your money, your resources, the way that flows into our community has a direct impact on the work that happens here, but then also the work that happens beyond these walls. We're actually in conversations about what does it look like as we move towards Christmas. I know it's only September. My wife's already watching Christmas specials now. This is her right here. But like, it's going to be honest before we know it. And so all of these opportunities are fueled by the dollars that come through Watershed. It takes about $13,000 a weekend. Thank you, those of you who, during the pandemic, you started becoming a part of Watershed, and now your dollars are reflecting that. That's incredibly helpful. If you're interested in being a part of that generosity movement, you can do that through the Watershed app. There's real secure ways to do it there. There's also real secure ways to do it on our website. Thank you for being here this morning. I am super excited about what we've got going on, and especially what we've got going on here in the front rows. More on that in just a minute, and where we think God might lead us this morning in our conversation and time together. Thanks.
Good morning, Watershed community. As you know, my name is Blair. I am the children's pastor for kids from the time they are born until they go off to middle school. We're actually here this morning because we have some new little ones. Our children's area at Watershed is called Greenhouse. Greenhouse is a place where connections are made, relationships blossom, and hard conversations are transformational. It's a place where people feel like they belong, no matter what, where memories are made and forever friendships form. We at Watershed promise parents that we will support them, that we will walk alongside them, that we'll give them opportunities to grow, we'll give them resources and tools that help them along the way. We promise that you will never be alone. I promise to our kids that we will celebrate them just like they are. We promise we will empower them. We promise to teach them stories of past and present that will make them more kind, thoughtful, and insightful humans that have the power to change this world for the better. We promise that they will also have the opportunity to teach us as they wonder and imagine. Our greenhouse space is filled with the littlest of the babies, to the walking toddlers, to the curious elementary students, to the tick-tocking preteens. We promise that you won't leave the hallway the same way you came. We promise that you will be changed.
As you see, I'm back on stage with some new friends. We actually have two new little ones that we are bringing to introduce you to today. Over here we have Callie. Callie, can you wave? Can you wave at everybody? Say hi. And over here we have Judah. Look, Judah. Hi. Hi. See? Yeah. So sweet. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm distracted. It's distracting. And then we also with me have two of our greenhousers up here that are a little bit older. They've been with us a little longer. They're a little wiser. But we have Callie and Brindley, and they're up here to help me this morning. So we are just so excited that both of you families, who are also family, brothers, for those who didn't know. So it's just a Smith day up here. But we're so excited that you two have chosen to let us be part of your kids' lives. And we know that parenting is not easy at all. We know that it is one of the most rewarding and exhausting things that you will ever do in your life. But we also know as a community that we believe that we're better together. And so as they grow and as you grow with them, we want to grow with you all as well. We want you to feel supported. We want them to feel celebrated for whoever they are and whoever they decide to be as they grow. And we want all of you to feel loved. So we are grateful that we get to be part of your life. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Judah's drooling. I feel like that means he's happy too. So we have a little gift for you this morning to kind of help you as you go along the way. So the girls are going to give your gifts to you all. So you can give it. You want to give it to the dads because they're not holding babies. But in this basket, there's a few things there. There is a Bible, which is our favorite Bible for kids here. It tells God's big story, and it also will help you to have conversations about where we all fit into God's big story. There's also a little Watershed onesie, so you can sport it around, be little influencers in the wild. And if you need a different size, you can get one, but we want you to remember that you're part of a bigger family. And then there's also a sticker that I'm sure they love to stick anywhere. That could be fun. And also we put a little succulent in there because we know that cacti are probably one of the best plants that help us to remember the joys of parenting and the difficulty of parenting. But also, they're like little kids because they suck in all the water and they hold it. But they're also a little prickly, the older they get especially. So we have some things in there that help you just to remember that you're not alone. So we love you, and we are here. And these people that are sitting in front of you are also here to walk alongside of you. It's not just us in Greenhouse, but it's everybody. Because like I said, we believe that we're better together. So I'd like to pray, and then we'll head down. Maybe Callie wants to pray with me. So, you ready? Let's pray together. Oh God of time and space, of memories and of future hopes, of long days and short years, of diaper bags and backpacks, of selfies and peace signs. We thank you for our children. We thank you for Callie. We thank you for Judah. God, we pray that you keep them as they grow, that you fill them with your light, and keep their hearts of wonder, curiosity, and braveness as they go through life. May they always remember that our arms are here to embrace them at any time. Thank you, God. Amen.
So I knew I was going to have to sing after that, and you all have probably seen or met Taryn, who also is one of the worship leaders here, and she often picks the songs that we do, and she picked a song, and I was like, that's trying to make me cry. But this song talks about one of the things that I think we all long for in one way or another. We all grow up with childhood wounds. Some of those wounds are capital T trauma wounds, and some of those are little t trauma wounds. But we all grow up with this brokenness, and we spend our lives trying to fill that void. We spend our lives trying to fix those things, to fill those cracks in us. This longing to be a child again is not just to experience maybe the innocence of life or maybe the freedom, but it's to experience the love that can be unending. the safety that is offered in the picture of childhood. And for many of us, we didn't get that. We didn't get that love. We didn't get that safety. And so we continue to long for it. And so as we have these child dedications, it's a reminder that the things that we grew up with, the spaces that we grew up with that maybe were broken or cracked, we get to be a part of healing those wounds together. And so we're going to sing a song, and maybe in the next few moments, you can think about that space. Maybe it's your own wounds, and maybe it's how you heal the wounds of others. Yeah, I know too much. I think I know my way around. Too smart to feel a heartbreak now. Too old to let my safeguards down. But where'd the wonder go? Trading magic for a measured hope. Trading dreaming for a worn out home. Tired of being in control. In the cosmic light, in the by and by, I wanna see your heart through my younger eyes. I wanna hear your voice in the rain and wind. I wanna know it's safe to be a child again. I know that getting hurt is really how redemption works. My ego is a ball and chain. My instincts only make it worse. In the morning light, I don't want to run away from pain. No, I can't afford to cheapen grace. I know that pain means my soul's awake. In the cosmic light, in the by and by, I wanna see your heart through my younger eyes. I wanna hear your voice in the rain. I wanna know it's safe to be a child again. Let my past mean nothing, make it powerless. I am free like a river. I am free like a river. You're my hope unbroken. You're my innocence. I am free, nothing, make it powerless. I am free like a river. I am free like a river. You're my hope unbroken. You're my innocence. I am free like a river. I'm a child again. In the cosmic light, in the by and by, I wanna see your heart through my younger eyes. I wanna hear your voice in the rain and wind. I wanna know it's safe to be a child again. In the cosmic light, in the by and by, I wanna see your heart through my younger eyes. I wanna hear your voice in the rain and wind. I wanna know it's safe to be a child again.
here's how I want to start this morning. Here's how I want to start this series. I want to begin by taking a look, just examining for a moment this brief interaction between Jesus and the disciples. It's kind of a familiar interaction for a lot of folks. It's this conversation that begins with the disciples wanting to know from Jesus, who is the greatest in the kingdom? In other words, out of all of us disciples, Jesus, who's the best? Who's going to be your wingman, you know? Like, who is going to be at your right-hand side as you begin to lead the world or lead this community or lead us as a people into the future? 16 different times in the gospel, this conversation happens. These guys, these people, these disciples wanting to know, like, what's my position here? And here's how Jesus answers. It says he calls a child to himself. He called a little child to him and placed the child among them. And he said, truly I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever takes the lowly position of this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me. Now, this is one of these conversations that, for me, I'm going to speak personally, it's kind of like nails on a chalkboard. It's a little like the conversation that we observe Jesus having with Nicodemus. If you remember that story in John chapter 3, Nicodemus was a spiritual leader, a religious leader in the community. He came to Jesus in the cover of night, and he wanted to know, what must I do to inherit eternal life? And if you remember, Jesus kind of gave him two responses. One was, you should already know the answer to this, which is never helpful when you ask a question, right? How do I factor x squared minus 9? You should already know this, Mez. You're a junior in high school, you know? Nobody likes that response. But the second response was, you have to be born again. And if you remember Nicodemus, it blew his mind. It's like, I can't go back into my mother's womb. And this conversation feels to me a little like that conversation. Like, how am I supposed to become 6 years old again? How am I supposed to be like 9 and playing with my friends? For many of you, you know that for the past 3 years, I've been returning back to Kentucky as my dad's health has kind of been transitioning out of this life and into the next. And a few weeks ago, that actually took place. And one of the things that would happen for me as I was driving back to Kentucky, or even while I was there, is I would begin to revisit these really kind of interesting places in my childhood. These kind of warm and fuzzy moments where it felt like, or at least from my memory, everything was the way it should be. Where this was before the insecurity, before any sorts of fear, before any sorts of bitterness or sadness or anger. It's like, if I could just recapture that, if I could just reclaim that. This series, The Oak Within the Acorn, is at one level, it's this audacious or this ambitious attempt at trying to take Jesus' word as true, that if we can just somehow begin to reclaim what it means to be a child, then something about our experience in the world, something about the way that we interact with the divine would begin to break open. So that's ambitious in and of itself. But this series is also ambitious and unprecedented in the way we're actually going to try to go about doing this. If you walk down the halls of our greenhouse space, on the walls, on these shelves are just all sorts of these incredible books that sort of convey these deep spiritual truths or ideas in very kid-appropriate ways. And so as a way of trying to work through this as a community, we're going to actually integrate some of our greenhouse content, some of our greenhouse stories, some of our greenhouse kids, some of our past childhood stories or voices, as a way of trying to ask the question, what does it mean, Jesus, for us to become like a child?
Good morning, Watershed. My name is Ellie, and I'm going to read a book for you, The Poets Inside of Me.
Can you wink? Do you know how to wink?
I can't wait.
Go.
You better pay attention or else.
How old are you?
8.
8 years old? What's the
In
bet?
the video.
Huh?
I said it in the video. When you're not paying attention to your own video.
Maybe you're a little spoiled.
Deep inside my body and all around my head lives a circle of beings who sometimes feel misled. I'm here to give some time to sit with them a while and listen deeper within to meet the ones exiled. But before I come close to those I keep at bay, I'll greet mighty protectors who guard along the way. There's a legion of poets who need some room to grow and tell so many stories of which I love to know. Limits. Once we venture inside, some poets poke their heads right out, while others run and hide. The poets have cleared ways to show you they are real. They move around the body and tell you what they feel.
Well, I apologize for that technical difficulty, but you caught the gist of what Ellie was trying to say. We'll revisit some things that Ellie might have to tell us a little bit later. I want to invite Des Smith to come to the stage. Desmond Smith, if you don't know him, you should. He's one of the coolest guys on the planet. He's been here. I'm overselling this.
Yeah. Wow.
I think, there you go.
Yeah. Gosh.
Des has been around for about 10 years, and you have worn multiple hats here. You've been a block leader. You have served on our lead team and are currently serving on our lead team, which is kind of like our version of elders here at Watershed. You currently are what I like to describe as the high priest of technology, but maybe not this morning. Not sure what happened.
What a time to pull me up on stage.
Yeah, right. If it's any consolation, I edited that video, so I probably am at fault for whatever took place.
We'll share the blame.
We'll share the blame. Either way. So the reason I'm asked Des to be a part of this morning is because everything that I just mentioned are the things that he does because they just fulfill his life. But one of the things he is fulfilled in doing and gets paid to do is you're actually a licensed therapist. Right. And you... We pulled Des into this conversation probably about 2 months ago because we started to realize the things that we might start to talk about would begin to maybe reorient or kind of ricochet through our interior space. And so when we start talking about this idea that Jesus poses about you got to become like a child, there's kind of like this inner child conversation. What pinged for you when we started to riff on that?
Yeah. So, we talked, like you said, a few months ago about the idea of what it might be like to go into a series like this, looking at children's books and children's stories and those sorts of things, and around this dialogue or this concept of the inner child. And, that's a concept that we see a lot in therapy spaces. But for me, when I heard it, as we started talking, it reminded me of this approach that I like to take with clients called internal family systems, right? And so it's this idea that if you've ever done any sort of family therapy before, or take what you might imagine family therapy to look like, where you've got a number of family members in a room, and there are different issues, and maybe there's even blame from one side to the other, and there's lots of dialogue, and there's a therapist typically trying to kind of coordinate this conversation and identify patterns and negative beliefs and all sorts of things. So take all those concepts and apply them internally, right? The premise is that in much the same way, we've got not just inner children, but we've got a whole host of inner, what we call parts in internal family systems, or IFS, just to not say that over and over again. Yeah. But we have a host of these parts that may take on different roles, in addition to sort of these inner children who might carry some hurt or some pain or some, those sorts of things. We also have parts that may kind of act as maybe a blaming older sibling or an overprotective parent or those kind of things. So there's lots of different, it just adds a lot of different dynamics when you start thinking about your interior space in that kind of way.
So there's a lot going on in all of that. And so drill down a little bit more, though. When you start describing these children, these sort of, we're talking metaphorically, these sort of
I've got 17 children living inside of me.
That's a joke, right?
Yeah.
So we have these metaphorical children.
Yeah, they're metaphorical.
Yeah, metaphorical children. And to say more about them, like how do they get formed? What's the sort of next layer to that?
Yeah, so probably one of the easiest ways to explain them is to think about actual children, right? Not the 17 that are living inside me, but the actual children that you may have counted in your life in the real world, in the external world, right? Kids typically have pretty basic needs. Obviously food, shelter, that sort of thing. But there's also this sense that kids want to have this feeling of being connected to family. They want to have this sense of being loved. It's one thing to know that they're loved, but also to feel that they're loved, right? And again, to explain this maybe a little bit better, it might be helpful to kind of think about an example,
sure,
right? Sort of a typical example. So imagine a family where there's a couple of parents, and a kid. And maybe these parents are at a point in their life where they're, focused on their career. They both have kind of career paths going. They have aspirations of kind of being, kind of progressing in that space. And of course, they have a new child who they love as well. The child might have a sense of being loved and know that they're loved and all those sort of things, and the parents may be very loving. And there may be circumstances that come up in a scenario like that where parents might, if they're, they may be sort of pulled in a direction of, I gotta check these emails. I'm gonna be home late for dinner tonight. You might, as a child, you might be sort of lying in bed, waiting for a bedtime story, and there's a phone call that has to happen, or something that has to happen before that occurs. And in a situation like that, certainly not all the time, and without any sort of intention on the parents, the child may begin to get this feeling that they are maybe not as important as some of the other things that those parents may be kind of moving towards, right? And if this happens one or two times, it's not a big deal, but it's over the course of, when that becomes a pattern, that child may begin to kind of feel that, and that feeling sometimes gets, I like to use the word like a snapshot. It's almost like a snapshot is taken of that moment. And
or
it's
like
sort
a belief system.
Yeah. It becomes like a fundamental sort of part of our belief system, right? And I know we talked about this earlier. It's probably really important to say that, obviously I've used an example of parents, but we get messages like this from all over the place, right? Like these are messages that even in the most loving household on the planet, we still all live and exist in a world where kids are at school, or there's TV, or there's sort of all these big. We've talked about all the isms earlier, when you and I were talking, but all sort of the different social forces that are at work, right?
So when you and I were talking earlier, I remember this situation where, let's say this person's name was Doug. This kid was, when I was a kid, this Doug kid, he kind of held me down in my front yard and took some grass and was like, he was doing like childhood stuff. He's a little older than me, pretending he was going to spit in my face. And I remember my dad coming in and kind of rescuing me out of that moment. But like a situation like that, as innocent as that might sound, two boys kind of playing.
Pretty typical for, a lot of childhood.
Sure. Like there could be this implicit message that, I'm powerless, or, or the implicit message that, somebody needs to sweep in and rescue me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to point out, right, that so many of these messages are implicit. There are lots of cases, unfortunately, where kids may kind of hear explicitly comments about their value or whether or not they have any authority, or they may be powerless to kind of change some of their circumstances. But so much of this is about just these implicit messages that we sort of carry around, and for whatever reason, we never have an alternative experience where those things get corrected, for lack of a better word, right? But yeah, powerlessness, the idea of being unimportant relative to some of the other, like with the parents, the example I gave before, feeling relatively unimportant to the other things. There are all sorts of these sort of beliefs, these snapshots that we may carry with us, for sure.
So I can think about, as a child growing up, like when I remember a situation like what I just described, there being like some sense of sadness, a little bit of anger sometimes. And I think not like it's always there, like I'm always able to see it, but it kind of surfaces. What does all this mean? Like, what do you do with the emotion that's kind of stored through those experiences, implicit or explicit?
Yeah, so ideally, right, in an ideal situation, love is really powerful. Love is a really healing force. And when there's a strong sense of connection and when we feel love, that can help us deal with some of those implicit messages, right? Unfortunately, none of us live in this ideal world. We don't live in this perfect world where we always experience this perfect love. And so, as I say that, I can't help but notice the spiritual overtones to this too, right? So we read the story of Jesus and asking the little children to come unto me, right? That in that situation, you've got sort of these disciples who can sometimes block the way, sometimes kind of keep the vulnerable little child away from Jesus. But ultimately, Jesus in this story is a source of love and compassion.
Yeah.
So much, but there's also the leaving the 99 to find the one, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, there's treasure in a field.
Yeah,
you figure this out. You sell everything, buy the field because that treasure's there, kind of thing. They're going out after this particular thing that's hidden.
Yeah. But what tends to happen is that I mentioned we have all these different internal family members, right? It's not just these inner children who are kind of carrying around some hurt, carrying around these implicit messages or these sometimes explicit messages. We also have these parts that tend to show up as more protective forces.
Yeah,
right?
There's actually names for these. There's exiles and then there's protectors. So talk a little bit about the delineate between those two.
Yeah. So when we talk about like inner children that are hurt, we call those exiles in the world of IFS. And we call them exiles because this other group of internal family members who go by the name protectors, they see these sort of young children carrying around these hurts, and they say, we've got to figure out a way to make sure this doesn't impact my life.
Yeah.
Right? They mean well. But if you imagine going into your boss's office and every day saying, I don't really feel important today. It's not something that really flies that great in a workplace scenario.
I know it. When I say that to Hofer, he's just like, just get out. I'm tired of hearing this,
Yeah. So to compensate for that, you've got some protectors who might say, oh, you can't be vulnerable, right? You can't share this with Hofer because he's gonna blast you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you have this protector that says, we need to keep that little part of you, that younger exile, away to make sure Scott doesn't see it.
Yeah. And for the record, Scott is the gentlest person on the planet. So just make sure everybody knows that.
He's not here, so we
can
have all kinds of fun, right? But yeah, so the protectors show up to find ways to sort of compensate for whatever the the exile might be carrying around, whatever burden the exile might be carrying around, right? If the sense is, as an exile, that I'm unimportant or I'm powerless, you may have protectors that show up to find ways to show your importance or to show your power, right? It's sort of replacing the authentic sense of self that's sort of been fractured with this more synthetic or created, if I don't feel important, I'm going to find a way to prove that I am important. And
so the book that Ellie was reading from actually isn't a kid's book, but it is. It's a tool that a therapist developed that is a children's book that helps kind of get at some of the deeper things that you're trying to describe. And so there's actually a couple of examples I'd love to hear you riff on. One is, it says this, it says, there's a part of me who wants to change its route. It second guesses my worth and tries to snuff me out. And then it says, where is the know-it-all? That part lives in here too. It fears others finding out just how little I knew.
Right.
So what's going on in that particular example?
So again, imagine a scenario where you've got this belief, this exile who understands I am not important. Let's take this know-it-all example, right? So we may have a situation where we find, as we're growing, that if we show up with answers, right? If we show up knowing everything that we need to know, maybe if we are really smart, academically gifted, whatever that might be, we can make ourselves valuable to somebody else, right? We can make ourselves important to somebody else by showing up in this sort of way, right? It doesn't ever solve the problem of fundamentally feeling like I'm not important, but I can manufacture this sense of importance by over-relying on this protective part.
So it's almost like there's this need to be an expert, so to speak,
of course,
in order to compensate for the exiled child thing that has happened inside. What about this one? This one says, part of me wears a cape and it's swift on its feet. Its nature is to rescue and nurture your relief. I have a part in me that can follow the pack or will spread itself too thin like a human doormat.
Yeah. So in the same way that sometimes I can make myself important by having answers, right? I might also make myself important by being somebody who makes myself needed by somebody else, right? I do for somebody else way more than they've ever asked, right?
Or if they've asked.
Or they may not even ask, but I find myself just doing and doing more and more and more. And in extreme versions of this, we might use words like codependence, or we might use words like a person who doesn't have a strong sense of boundaries or that kind of thing. But this is somebody who, in this scenario, this kind of protector, this sort of service protector shows up, and because of the hurt underneath, sort of ramps itself up to 11 in order to help make these feelings sort of not be as strong, right? It's not, again, we talked about this idea of no bad parts, the book club that's coming up, and the idea that all of these protectors mean well, and it's not like serving somebody else is a bad thing. It's just when they get ramped up to these extreme roles, they ramp them up to 11, and that's when it kind of becomes problematic.
So a couple of things that I want to mention that we wanted to make sure that was named. First of all, there's a fascinating parallel here for those of you who are familiar with the Enneagram. When you start talking about the know-it-all, all right, the Enneagram 5, which is the expert, or my need to show up and help, whether that's really needed or not. Right. That's kind of a Enneagram 2. Don't want to rabbit trail too far into those ideas, and if you're sitting there going, what in the world is an Enneagram? Just take a deep breath. But there's actually a 4-week experience that kind of introduces you to that idea through your wife, Christy, who is a rock star in that world and many other worlds. So you can actually sign up for that experience through the Watershed app. But also, we talked about some of the ways that implicitly or explicitly these inner children or these beliefs or these snapshots get formed. It's not limited to just one-on-one exchanges with other people. The social aspect of it that you mentioned before, everything from gender, race, sexuality, misogyny, patriarchy, all of these systemic ways that the world sometimes functions send these implicit or sometimes explicit messages. And so there are things that get created in all of that.
Yeah.
So I know I said a lot there, but let's circle back to the idea of love kind of becoming the way forward through this in terms of how we deal with the inner child. What's the path there?
One of the concepts we haven't mentioned yet, really the core concept of internal family systems, is this idea that there's what we call the self, right? Yeah. The self is the true, sort of authentic core of who we are, and this is one of the reasons why I really like the parallel between the story of Jesus that we read earlier, but maybe even more so this idea of kind of going, leaving the 99 to find the one, right? Yeah. That the self, a lot of what we talk about in therapy is helping to empower a person to sort of find the self, and then to help that be the inner parent, the inner sort of ideal parent that shows up and loves these hurting inner children, right? Yeah. You'll see on the screen that there are these 8 C words that Dr. Schwartz, the sort of the figurehead, the founder, I guess, the developer of internal family systems, sort of uses to describe the self, right? And there's things like compassion and courage and curiosity, calmness, creativity. All these C words sort of describe this inner energy, this inner sort of entity that we all have access to, and that part of us, that self, can be the force that shows up and helps these younger kids that have been sort of snapshotted in this time, in this situation, help them understand that, oh, you do have value, right? You are loved. You do have power. Yeah. It may have been that it might have felt like you didn't have power as a kid, and maybe you didn't have power as a kid, but that time has passed, and now as an adult, how do we begin to let go of some of those things?
Yeah, well, and this isn't an exhaustive list.
It
so
is
things
not.
Like empathy
Right.
and...
Empathy didn't fit because it wasn't a C word.
It wasn't a C word. It just would...
Empathy is not a word.
Empathy, yeah. But, as you and I were talking, again, like the idea that I think we struggle so deeply as the church, and I'm going to use myself as an example. For my entire life, most of my frame of reference for how God works is outside of myself. Mm-hmm. Somehow God is out there, and God will enter into me. But there is also a very transformative conversation that suggests that the divine is already like deeply embedded in the very essence of who I am. There's myself and there's the God self.
Right.
You were going to say something.
Yeah, because I think we have all of these concepts of how we imagine God to love us, right? Yeah. God loves us with most of these words.
Yeah.
And when lots of times when we look at ourselves, when we look internally, when we look at some of these parts that we feel like we don't love and that hurt us, and that maybe some of these protectors show up that we hate, that we don't like the fact that we have a temper, or maybe that we use substances more than we want to. We can have a posture of judgment and hatred towards those parts. Yeah. But I think the real transformation is, how do we begin to see ourselves through this more self-like, Christ-like, compassionate lens, right? If God sees us that way, then can we learn to see ourselves that way?
Sort of, this is what it would mean to like bring the children to the Christ center, the God center of who I am.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The disciples, I don't think I said this earlier when we were chatting, but sometimes you don't get a great picture of who Jesus is by looking at the people who follow him.
Really?
So these disciples who maybe mean well, they try to keep these pesky little kids away from Jesus.
Yeah.
They're not doing anybody any favors, right?
Yeah.
So it's how do we sort of clear out and get those, connect these, in this case, the exiles with the self,
So, a couple of things. If this series is not about like unpacking all these different parts in the weeks ahead, so I want to make sure that I make that delineation.
Right.
what this series does, though, is it does begin to peel back some layers through the use of some unprecedented means because of the way that we're integrating our kids and our kid space and things of that nature. If you want a deeper dive, the book club that we offered at the top of this morning, No Bad Parts with Sarah, would be a great way to kind of become more familiar with what you're describing here. But there's a reason that we wanted to begin the conversation with this particular model or metaphor. And can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, so like I said, so much of what we do in a therapeutic setting is helping people connect with this concept that, we can look at ourselves in this way. We can sort of take on the posture of self and look inward and be compassionate and be curious and be all the things that these C words represent, that, adopting that sort of posture. As we talk about these children's books, or you may have your own experiences with books or movies or situations that you may find yourself welling up, right? You might find yourself tearing up about something. You might find yourself getting angry about something when kind of looking around the room and like, nobody else seems to be feeling this right now. What's going on with me? This is sort of again, in the IFS world, we call it trailheads, but it's really, here's maybe the beginning of finding one of these exiles that have kind of been hurt, that have been kind of kept away for too long, right? If it's the shepherd leaving the 99 to find the one lost lamb, it's, that shepherd's going to be looking for, where did this lamb go? He's going to be looking for, signs and evidence that, the lamb has gone this way. I don't really know where yet, but I'm going to keep following this path. And that's essentially what's happening here, right? So, if you're reading the Velveteen Rabbit or, any other sort of children's book that might start to well something up.
Or if you're watching Ted Lasso.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Which I've recently been watching a lot of. So that works really well. That there are these moments where, you're kind of looking around the room and I'm starting to get teary, but nobody else is. That may be a sign that we're headed in the right direction. Or if we kind of move down this path, we might find something that can be really transformative.
Yeah. So it's almost like an internal homing device that says there's something to see here. Yeah. And I think that's why we felt like this was a good conversation to get us started, because it's possible that in the weeks ahead, as things are said or as you observe different images or stories or experiences, you might have this sense that, wait a minute, there's something more to see here, and how do I begin to move towards that? Yeah,
I would say if that happens for you, as that happens for you throughout this series or throughout other experiences, the challenge would be how to begin to see that situation through this more curious, compassionate lens rather than the maybe the more judgmental.
Yeah, and whether that's just sitting with yourself and reflecting on that, or getting involved in a conversation with a trusted friend, or depending on what it is, maybe coming to see someone like you or some other expert. Yeah. Those are all viable options for sure. So we give Des a big round of applause this morning. Thank you for being here. Here's kind of how I want to end this morning. This is the first word on many words, so to speak, throughout the rest of this series, which is kind of the way Watershed has always shown up in the world. We've never said we're the last word on just about anything, maybe on a few things, like love your neighbors yourself, love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. Those are some pretty strong last words. But I thought it might be helpful as a way of kind of moving us towards the future weekends together in some of what we might experience, that the best way to kind of wrap this up and kind of head towards the future weeks would best be named by Ellie, as we attempt to become like children.
We have a wiser self that stays above the fray. It's able to take the lead on any given day. I now know its presence, its energy is calm, and it aims to help my pulse find ways to get along. There are times that I feel lost inside my own head, but it's worth the giant leap to love myself instead. I can witness for you like you witness for me. We can bring compassion towards inner harmony. I am the way I am. It's clear for all to see how much I completely love the parts inside of me. The world could be a kind place, but a gift if we can believe that the parts you see in others might reside in you and me. And always remember, you're awesome, you're great, and love yourself, be kind, and be safe.
I want to invite you to stand as we close this morning together.
Oh, the vapor of it all. It's a chasing of the wind, the powers of the earth, so pale and thin. We will set our hearts on you again. Heaven taunts the hearts of men. We can feel it from within, the beauty of it all, the mystery, the swelling of a voice, a rising sea. You, oh God, are holy. Trees clap their hands for you. Oceans, they dance for you. You are holy. Oh, the mystery of it all. I could never peer within, could never find the words or understand the fullness of a God become a man. You, oh God, are holy. Trees clap their hands for you. Oceans, they dance for you. You are holy, infinite and holy. A billion suns rise for you. Clouds paint the skies for you. Mountains stand tall for you. Valleys bow down to you. Everything rising to sing all our songs for you. Oh,
humble and holy. Kings become fools for you, kingdoms to ruins for you. Vapor finds ground in you, music finds sound for you. And kings become fools for you, kingdoms to ruins for you. Vapor finds ground in you, music finds sound for you. Everything rising, everything rising, everything rising. Sing it. Oh, 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 come like dawn, come like dawn, like waves, like sunlight. Bring this world to life. Come like rain, like breath, like springtime. Bring this world to life. Oh, come like dawn, like waves, like sunlight. Bring this world to life. Come like rain, like red, like springtime. Bring this world to life. Thank you so much for being here this morning. I hope you have a great week. We'll see you next Sunday.